So we're going to go into Peru in a second. And just to give a little bit of, context, I don't know why. Still, I see the media, the left media, even independent media or socialist media, say Pedro Castillo is officially the one, because he's not. I want, myself personally, yes, I would like to see him win. And yes, I believe he has won effectively, of course, by the vote counts, right? However, until this whole thing is resolved, you cannot call a victory, because it actually puts us in a situation where people think everything's good and then it's not. And when you're not paying attention, shit happens. So what has happened recently is the OAS or the OEA, same thing. It has began observing, right? Has begun observing and following the electoral process, the Peruvian electoral process. And this is as of June 24th, 2021, the MOE of the OAS in Peru. And it's headed by ex-chancellor of Paraguay, Ruben Ramirez Lescano, are following the developments of this past electoral process. So that's what they're doing right now. And they basically are looking at what the JNE is doing, what the JEE is doing, and what the OMPE is doing, right? So they're now observing this, and they're basically saying, we're observing this, and we're going to make sure that nothing bad happens. We're going to make sure that everything is good. So this woman went on Twitter, and her name is Kate Harrison, okay? And she posted it in Spanish, but I'll hit the translate and I'll double make sure that it's accurate.
There it is.
She said, I am closely following the electoral process and take note of the latest OAS statement that indicates that up to now, the actions of the electoral authorities have followed the law. It is important that the process concludes transparently and without delay. So it's interesting. The OAS is saying up until this moment, they have followed the law. So thus far, the OAS is saying this. So that's that. That's what the OAS is saying. But just so you guys know, the OAS is monitoring. Now, we're going to look at what the Canadian observers have said. So here it is.
This is JNE Peru again, right?
Yes, this is JNE Peru. The government of Canada recognizes that the electoral process is held on June 6th was free, fair, and open. Therefore, it also confirms its support for the electoral bodies for the work carried out to date. So this is another outside observer saying we support what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And again, this is the OEA official. So that's the OAS. So this is an interesting development, because the OAS is even like not, like validating this. So it's kind of like, what's going on here? And so then the JNE Peru once again said, the Transparency Civil Association also coincides with the evaluation of the OAS observation mission on the performance of the special electoral juries and the national elections jury in accordance with current regulations and guarantee of due process. So
what's the problem then?
The problem
Why don't they crown
is, I'll tell you, the problem is because Keiko Fujimori is still pushing it, and she was allowed to push this in spite of everything, because she has people in the JNE who were favoring her. We told you this from the start. She had people in there that were favoring her. So what the latest development is, guys, Peru Election Board suspends member over conflict of interest. Hey. So this guy right here, the JNE resolved to suspend the incumbent member of the plenary of the electoral body, Luis Carlos Arce Cordova. This guy, from the start, we told you, he was pro-Keiko. And he's also in trouble for the Cuellos Blancos situation, which basically was just a bunch of money laundering, dirty dealings that they did. Now, through a communique, The JNE expressed its rejection of the offensive expressions made by Arce in his letter on June 23rd, since according to the JNE, they attacked the honor and good reputation of the members of the JNE plenary and the electoral system, high authorities and servants of the country. So this guy Arce on June 23rd requested his irrevocable declination as representative of the public prosecutor office before the plenary of JNE under the basis of avoiding his minority votes being used to validate false constitutional deliberations that are reality decisions with clear political bias. In other words, he basically refused to participate because he felt like he was the only one that was supporting looking at the actas, looking at the tallies. He was the only one that wanted to really go through with it. So he was like, well, I'm just washing my hands out of this.
Accusing himself
And
of sorts, yeah.
so when that happened, first of all, he can't quit. So his position, like he can't just say in the middle of this entire process, it's normally illegal for somebody to do that. So it's really interesting that what happened was on June 15th, the Association of the Democratic Lawyers of Peru presented a recusal before the JNE against Luis Arce Córdoba based on an alleged conflict of interest, lack of transparency, and bias in favor of Fuerza Popular. There were reports that he met up with Keiko Fujimori, a political party, of course, led by Keiko Fujimori, blah, blah, blah. So there's this tweet here, and you can see the tweet from JNE Peru, and I will go ahead and read that one for you guys so you know. Some of this stuff is kind of wonky, so it's really good to like go through it. So they had this resolution. The president of the JNE resolved to suspend Mr. Luis Carlos Arce Córdoba from the exercise of the position of full member of the plenary to give rise to the convocation of the provisionally corresponding representative. And there's the letter, and that's what happened. So I'm just going to read the next one, Johnny, as well. In the resolution, the board of the Supreme Prosecutors of the Public Ministry is informed so that with extreme urgency, it provisionally summons its representative before the plenary of JNE. So basically, he's gone. They're going to replace him, guys. They're going to replace him.
Because he had a biased stance, right?
He had a biased stance.
He's caught meeting with the popular party, the Popular.
Fuerza Popular, exactly.
Yeah,
and he's also one of the, like I mentioned, one of the Los Cuellos Blancos del Puerto, which was a criminal organization led by the former Supreme Court Justice of Peru, Cesar Y Nostroza, who helped Fujimori with her judicial process. So he is conflict of interest all around. Yeah. So that's it. And they said that there is sufficient evidence that would lead us to suspect that the judge Luis Carlos Arce Córdoba would not be impartial in the administration of administrative justice. So basically he's gone, and like I said, they're gonna replace him, and who they chose to replace him, by the way, is also corrupt. But that's another matter. So right now this is what's happening, right? He was also shit talking, right? He was shit talking the JNE. So basically what's happening is they're trying to say that the JNE is not a decent enough organization to look over the election. So that's what Keiko Fujimori is now alleging, that the JNE is not an organization that should be leading. So this is a couple of things that I'll just translate for you. He was caught in a phone call with one of his friends, just, talking about deals and briberies and stuff. And they basically, he's the one that allowed Keiko Fujimori to solicit the nullification of the tallies, the electoral tallies that they had. And it favored, of course, Keiko Fujimori, and she's trying to overturn 200,000 votes, okay? And he was a representative of the JNE. He's also being investigated with money laundering and as well. So there was an audio that happened. So I was just showing you what the overall gist is. The next one is he is trying to delay the process because he declined declining the participation in this is now delaying the process, because now they had to replace him and start this whole thing again, and it undermines the organization because the organization is looks like what's going on here. This has never happened in Peru, right? And this is an illegal declination, like I said, because you can't do this in the middle of
The next one.
of what's happening, right? You can't do this in the middle of when you're having this whole process. And what does this mean? I'm just gonna break it down. If you can show Jonny actually on the document, what does this mean? Because I want people to know, Keiko is basically trying to do everything in her power to delay the process as much as possible. What she wants to do is create a constitutional crisis, because if a president is not named by July 28th, then the country would be vulnerable to a constitutional crisis. And then they can say, well, we don't have a president, we need new elections. That is her number one intent. That is what they're trying to do. Because what day is it? It's almost July, right?
Yep.
And if this continues, it should have been 5 to 15 days. But the way this is going on and about, it looks like they're doing everything they can to stop this. And now Keiko's people are also in the streets saying that the elections aren't valid, right? And so the second thing that could potentially happen, which is this is more likely to happen, is if they continue delaying the process and place doubt on Pedro Castillo, it could hinder a peaceful takeover of the Castillo government, even if he is named the president and he starts taking over, which allows for the potential for a coup later, manufacturing consent that Castillo is corrupt, that Peru didn't have fair elections, manufacture a fake uprising of sorts to then potentially come in and either push re-election or push a coup out. So either way, they're not letting the power go. And the mainstream media in Peru, what they've been doing is actually saying, now, wait a minute. Yeah, we need to make sure that our elections are good and are fair now. We can't just say that Castillo has won and all of this stuff. It's called un golpe lento, a slow coup. So what they're trying to do...
Say it again.
Un golpe lento.
I want to learn how to say that.
Golpe lento, basically, it's not a normal coup. It's very obvious. You go in, you take power, and blah, blah, blah. Un golpe lento is when you do things to delay the electoral process, which then puts the country in a vulnerable position, which you can then come in and take over. And that's what's happening. And nobody's talking about this. Like, literally. And I'm just like, here, oh, my God. Like, this is like, people think, oh, it's a done deal. No, you guys. There's a reason why Evo Morales warned Pedro Castillo. There's a reason why there's marches right now in D.C. Franco's march tomorrow for, stop the coup, because people, we know, some of us know, we've seen this playbook time and time again. We know what happens. And believe it or not, the OAS might be just waiting on the sidelines, because this is it would be a very difficult, like I said, paper ballots is very hard. The signature verification, all of that has been thrown out. They verified it's the same signature of the people. They did that. It's done. So she doesn't really have anything other than to delay the process until the country enters a constitutional crisis.
Yeah. It seems like she's playing chess and putting all of her her pieces in position to go and attack. And that's what this seems like, that she's stalling, delaying, and the international community or the elites or the imperialists will back her and stuff, and eventually something might happen. And I think this is information and news you won't get anywhere, fam. This is great stuff that you brought to the table here, because you refuse to say, okay, where a lot of people like Castillo won and it's over and stuff. Like, no, it's not over. And we see what's going on. They're pulling out every trick in the book over here. So to be continued, and we have to pay close attention to this, because I can see if the OAS is on the sideline right now and they get involved. We saw what happened in Bolivia. We see what happens everywhere. Just recently, El Salvador walked out of a dual function together with the OAS because Biden put somebody in, his adversary, in place. So he's already said, condemned, and said, I'm done with the OAS. I'm finished with this group. We know what the OAS can do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The Bolivia coup is just a clear example. And they had no grounds on that particular situation. You know what I'm saying? They lied, cheated, and stealed. And they, they ingested death throughout the country. People died in that situation. And I'm just scared for what's going to happen in Peru right now.
Yep.